Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk to you about my best and worst audiobooks that I listened to or attempted to listen to in 2017. I read a lot of things on audio, and a lot of things I read between a mix of audio and ebook or physical, just whatever I have on hand. So real quick, we're just gonna start with the worst audiobooks because I only have two to talk about. So the first one is Light Between Oceans. This is a book by M.L. Stedmen, and the narrator for this book was Noah Taylor. I listened to maybe 30 minutes of this on audio before deciding I could not handle the narrator and I didn't want to listen to it anymore. And I actually didn't end up reading Light Between Oceans at all last year. For now, it's been put back into the long list of books that I want to read. So my main issues with the narrator for this book were that his voice is really soft and he tends to end his sentences very softly. And there were many moments where I just couldn't hear or understand what he was saying, especially at the end of his sentences. I went and looked on audiobooks.com and there were multiple others who had given this narrator bad or lower ratings and kind of said the same thing as what I was experiencing. So I personally would say that the audiobook is not the way to go for Light Between Oceans. If you've listened to this on audiobook and you enjoyed the narrator, feel free to leave that down in the comment section because I'm sure there's some people out there who didn't have a problem listening to him. My next audiobook that I couldn't listen to is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. And as many of you know, Uprooted was one of my favorite books from last year, so I still did read this book. The narrator for Uprooted on audio is Julia Amalin, something like that. And I listened to this for maybe 45 minutes before deciding I couldn't take her voice either. So I think my main issue with this narrator was the accent. So the narrator for this book gives a very strong Russian accent to the main character, which this book is Russian inspired. So I can totally see why she did that, and it's probably true to the character for her to have that sort of accent. But for me, it was really distracting and I just could not focus on what she was saying because I kept getting distracted by the accent. I don't know if that happens to any of you guys. I've definitely listened to some books where the narrators give accents to different characters, but for this one it wasn't just when the main character was speaking that she was giving the accent. She was reading everything in like a Russian accent, and for some reason that was really distracting to me. I've never come across that before. So if you've experienced that before, let me know, but this is the first time I'd come across that. So yeah, I gave up on the audiobook for Uprooted and just read it physically, and it was much better for me. Okay, moving on to the audiobooks that I really enjoyed from last year. So for all of these best audiobooks, basically I looked through my Goodreads to see what books I had listened to that really jumped out at me as being memorable audiobooks. It could also be that these audiobooks really added to my experience of the book and that I might not have enjoyed the books as much if I had just read them and not listened to them. Basically, these are books that I would recommend listening to on audio if you think you're going to read them and if you enjoy audiobooks to begin with. I also do a lot of my rereads on audio, so quite a few of these are books that I had read physically previously and then reread via audio in 2017. So the first books that I'm going to talk about are, of course, the Wheel of Time series. All of them, as far as I know, are narrated by Michael Kramer and Kate Reading, which I think is a awesome name for an audiobook narrator for your last name to be Reading. What a coincidence. They both do an amazing job. They actually do a lot of Tor books, so they're actually on my list twice because they also did the narration for A Gathering of Shadows, which is the second book in the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. The first book in that series was done by somebody else, but both this book and the third book are done by Matt Kramer and Kate Reading, and they're just fantastic narrators. Tor uses them a lot, and I just think they do an awesome job, and I will listen to anything that they read. The Wheel of Time series are obviously all rereads at this point, and then A Gathering of Shadows was a reread for me. I was rereading it in anticipation of reading A Conjuring of Light shortly afterwards, and I still haven't read A Conjuring of Light, but it's going to happen soon. I also read Darken by Kiersten this year in anticipation of reading the sequel, which I still haven't done yet, but I really enjoyed the audiobook of Darken, which is read by Fiona Hardingham. I checked and the sequel to this book, Now I Rise, is also read by her, so I'm really looking forward to listening to that on audio. Even though it's not a reread, I might just go straight to the audiobook because I enjoyed the narrator that much. Speaking of series, one of my pet peeves is when series change narrators, although sometimes they change for the better, like between A Darker Shade of Magic and A Gathering of Shadows. So sometimes that's fine, but sometimes when I really like a narrator for a book in a series and then the next book is read by somebody else that I don't enjoy as much, it's always a little bit of a disappointment. So I always like to check to see if the sequel will be read by the same person or not. I also read the first 2 books in the Gold Seer trilogy, so Walk on Earth a Stranger and Like a River Glorious by Ray Carson. They're both on my favorites list, but I listened to both of those on audio and I thought the narrator was awesome, and her name is Erin Mallon. I've never listened to her before as far as I know, and I thought she did a really great job, and I'll probably listen to the 3rd book on audio as well. I don't remember if she reads the 3rd book or not, but if she does, I'll probably listen to the 3rd book on audio instead of reading it physically. So last year in December, I also listened to the first 2 books in the Queen of the Tearling series. So the first one, Queen of the Tearling by Erika Johansen, which was read by Catherine Kellgren, and then the second book of the series was read by a different narrator, which is, like I said, one of my pet peeves, but the second one's read by Davina Porter. So while I liked both of these narrators, I kind of like them for different reasons. I really liked how Catherine Kellgren voiced the main character, Kelsey. She's very theatrical in the way that she voices characters, and it took a little getting used to because at first I felt like she was kind of overacting, especially for some of the soldiers and the male characters in the book. But once I kind of got used to it, then it kind of grew on me and I liked it. The second narrator, Davina Porter, I loved her narration, and she does a lot of audiobooks as well. She's actually done, I think, all of the Diana Gabaldon books. So she's kind of like a bigger name narrator, I think, in my like limited experience. And she was awesome. I preferred her, I think, over Catherine Kellgren. However, I didn't like how she voiced the main character, Kelsey. For some reason, she sounds like an old lady to me. I don't know how old Davina Porter is, but her voice when she was voicing Kelsey, the main character, did not sound like a 19-year-old, and that annoyed me a little bit. But as far as how she voiced everything else, I thought she was awesome, and I was really hoping that the last book was going to be voiced by her as well, but it's not. I don't remember who the narrator for Fate of the Tearling is, but it's not either of these 2. So I only have 2 more audiobooks / narrators to talk about. So next I have Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This was narrated by Cassandra Campbell. Never listened to her before as far as I know, but I thought she did an awesome job with this audiobook. I listened to this exclusively. I didn't do any other physical reading to go with it. So this is supposed to be like a thriller book, and I was definitely thrilled while reading it. There's a really big sense of suspense in this book, and there were so many moments that my heart was beating really quickly because I was scared and it was giving me anxiety. A lot of that had to do with the narration of this book. If you guys are considering reading Bird Box and you like audiobooks, I highly recommend listening to it because I think the narrator did an awesome job. Okay, so the last book I'm going to talk about is The Girl with All the Gifts by MR Carey. This book also made it onto my favorites list of 2017, and it's possible that listening to this made me enjoy this book more than if I had read it physically. This is narrated by Fenty Williams. I am not familiar with that name. I don't think I've listened to anything else this person has narrated, but I thought they did a really good job with the main character in this book, Melanie, and her perspective. And I just really connected with the way this narrator voiced Melanie and the other characters and the book in general. I just thought they did a really good job, and I think listening to this on audio enhanced my experience with the book. Okay, so those are all the audiobooks that I have to share with you today. Let me know in the comments if you like hearing about audiobooks. I do listen to a lot of books. I don't do like separate audiobook reviews like I know some other channels do, like Trina from Between Chapters, or I also follow Jen from Jen's Library, who pretty much almost exclusively reads audiobooks, and she talks a lot about narrators. So I feel like there's other people doing those things, but if you guys are interested in having like separate audiobook reviews or anything like that, definitely let me know down in the comment section. If you've read any of these books, or even if you've listened to any of these books and have thoughts on their narration or the books themselves, let's discuss that down in the comment section. Also, if you've listened to other books that were narrated by any of the narrators that I listed in my best part of this video, definitely let me know, because I want to check out more books that these people have narrated, because I think they did an awesome job and I want to listen to more books by them. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like bookish content. I post 1 to 2 times a week. That is all I have for now, and thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. Hello, bookworms. Best and worst audiobooks that I listened to. And I actually didn't end up reading Light Between Oceans. Voiced the main character, Kelsey, and I listened to this pretty much exclusive. I listened to this exclusive. Leave those. Bye.